Maybe you upgraded to an R6 recently or possibly thinking about getting one. If so, I'm going to show you how to customize your buttons and the four that I recommend changing. Hey there, my name is Nick Fenton and I'm a photographer based out of Atlanta, Georgia. I shoot mostly weddings and engagements with the R6 here, and let me tell you, 2 years and about 50 weddings later, I highly recommend it. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video because I do have a bit of a bonus tip to show you, and I think it's something that'll come in handy. All right, enough intro, let's just jump in. First things first, go ahead and update your firmware to the latest version if you need to. So here we're looking at the back of the R6. You can see on this one I have the optional double battery vertical grip here too. It has some of its own buttons that we'll talk about as well. But basically what I'll do is just start with customizations on the back, and then we'll work our way towards the front of the camera. So really the back of the camera, there's only one button on here that I like to customize, and that is the star button here in the kind of the top right of the body. And so I like to have that set to toggle on and off the eye detection. So let me show you where we can set this. So first let's turn the camera on, then we'll go to our menu. If your start screen is here, we want to go to the icon that's to the right of the wrench. And then we want to go to submenu number 3. And here you'll see where it says customize buttons. And here on the screen, we can see on the left-hand side, there's kind of like an outline of the camera body, and that's highlighting which button you're currently selecting. And here in the middle, kind of in the middle, you'll see the buttons that you can choose for modifying what they do in photo mode. And on the right-hand side, you can choose what they do in video mode. So let's talk about the star button again. We'll scroll down to select it. We'll just click in, and then you can see it gives you all these different options that you can select from. And there are a ton of different options within here. But as I said before, I like to have this set to eye detection. So I'm going to leave that set. And so with the eye detection toggle, this really comes into handy, like for example, if you're doing a portrait at a wedding and you're trying to do like a wide shot and you want to just make sure that the camera can see the face. Sometimes it's a lot easier for it to find the face than it is the eye. But then when you get up close really quick, you can get more of the eye tracking and the details. So if I hit the star button, you see it turns eye detection on, turns it off. That only works when your AF point mode is set to the face tracking. If I try to switch this to say like 1 point autofocus, it doesn't know what to do. It simply just needs to know, hey, I'm looking for a face here. And then I can change whether or not it's trying to find an eye or just the face as a whole. If you do have the vertical grip, you can see that the same buttons are here on the top right as well. So you'll have the star button. If you click it, eye detection on, click it again, eye detection off. Same for the button to the right of that. You've got your AF point modes or your AF point selection here too. So moving to the top of the camera, there are 2 buttons up here that I like to customize. The other ones I just leave as default. So here, this dial, that's set to your ISO if you're in manual mode. This one will be your shutter speed. The 2 that I like to change are the multifunction button, which is really designed in a great place because your index finger is typically right in this area anyway. And then of course you have your shutter button. That's the other one that I like to customize. So let's talk about the multifunction button first. I like to have this set to swap between servo and one-shot shooting modes. And this is really handy to have up here just to move to each really quickly, because sometimes I'll be shooting maybe like a stationary object at a wedding, and then all of a sudden there's maybe some candid moment happening and I quickly need to switch to servo to get more of that movement tracking going. So again, in the menu, we can go back to our customized buttons, scroll down to our multifunction button, and here we have it set to one-shot AF and then swap to servo AF. And we'll see that work right here. So I'll press it. Now we're in servo, and now we're back to one-shot. So I also mentioned I like to customize my shutter button. Don't get me wrong, it still just takes the photo. It's the basic thing to do on any camera. But my shutter button doesn't activate the autofocus motors at all. Normally out of the box, really with any other camera, if you half press the shutter, it'll get the autofocus to engage. I turn that off because I want to just have it just take the photo and nothing else. And I'll talk about why in just a second. So let's go to our menu, customize buttons. The shutter button is the very first one at the top here, so I'll click that. Normally by default, this is set to metering and autofocus start. I have mine set to only metering start. And the reason for that is because I like to use back button focus. And what that means is I use this AF on button back here to initiate the autofocus. And when this is engaged, I feel like I have more control as far as when I take photos, and I'm missing less shots. I'm more intentional with the shots I do take, and that's just the way I shoot. It's just comfortable for me now. All right, the next button I like to customize on the R6 is actually in the very front. It's this depth of field preview button that before I never really used it because it's a little bit of an awkward place, right? You kind of have to like reach your hand around and make sure that your finger's long enough to kind of grab it. Even with a grip, it's a little bit difficult to get to. But basically I have that set to the drive mode. So whether I'm shooting just a single shot, if I'm shooting kind of that high burst rate, or if I want to change it to like a 2-second timer mode. So again, we'll go to our menu, customize buttons, and we'll find that depth of field preview button. And right here it's set to our drive mode. So when I click it, I can quickly switch to either single shot, high speed continuous plus, high speed continuous, so on and so forth. And for the most part, I typically stay within single shooting unless maybe there's, a wedding party walking down the aisle at the beginning of a ceremony or something like that, and I just want to fire off a few quick bursts. I may switch over to high-speed continuous just for that burst mode there. All right, so this is the bonus one that I was talking about. So I normally shoot in auto white balance. I know photographers that shoot in nothing but Kelvin all the time. I'll switch between the two every once in a while, especially if I'm in a dark reception. I want to make sure that, I have my white balance tuned correctly for the lighting situation there. What I could do is I could change the auto white balance to Kelvin here in the menus, but then I need to go over here. I need to change my temperature using the buttons here, and it just takes a little while. What I could do though is if I have this set to Kelvin, I have the control ring on the lens change the temperature. So as I rotate it to the left, it gets cooler, and I can just rotate it to the right and it'll get warmer. Again, it won't do this if it's set to auto white balance. You still have to change your quality setting here to show the Kelvin setting, but that's just a nice handy thing that I have here as well. And so to do that, again, we'll go to menu. Instead of customize buttons, we'll choose customize dials. And here we've got the knob up top for my shutter speed, the other knob on top, which is set for my ISO by default, the knob or the wheel on the back to change aperture for your thumb here, and then the last one is for the control ring. You see I have it set to select color temperature. And so again, not something I use often, but when I need to use it, I typically just need to use it really quickly. And so that just helps me gauge as I'm looking through the viewfinder, what's my temperature looking like, what seems to be the most accurate white balance. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I also hope that what I showed you will be of some help along the way. Be sure to subscribe for future videos, and you can check out my work on my website, which I've linked down below. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next video.